Hi guys, welcome to Palace to the Core. Thank you for joining me as always, and don't forget to subscribe for more Crystal Palace news, views and reviews. Okay, so after the Fulham game, after I posted that video, I had a very interesting comment that basically said that we can't sustain the type of football that Oliver Glasner wants us to try and do, and it had me thinking that is that absolutely going to be the case for us going forward? Because when you look at it, he wants a lot of pace, he wants people in the box, he wants to overload the box, and that means a lot of sprinting backwards and forwards up and down the pitch. Now, of course, we do know that can cause problems if you're getting tired and the legs get tired. That can cause an issue, and it made me think as to whether we are suited to this type of football, and I want to hear your thoughts on this down in the comment section, because when you think about it, we don't have a huge squad, and you can argue what happened during the transfer window in the summer, whether it was good or bad, but the long shot is that Oliver Glasner apparently was the one who decided that we need to trim down the squad size to what we have now. But the problem with that is that we now have a situation where we have injuries, which are to some of our top players, and we are now trying to maintain this high tempo, high press game, which is very tiring, and especially in the Premier League where you're dealing with very good teams. And if you're in a situation where you're not controlling the game, you're then having to keep running backwards and forwards when you lose the ball, which we often do. So it made me think to myself that maybe Palace just aren't able to cope with this type of football. Maybe last season, the end of last season, we had a fantastic run, but I've given some of my reasons why I think that happened in a previous video, and I think one of it was because it was a shock to the other teams. Oliver Glasner came in, it was this new high press, high intense game that hadn't seen Palace do before, and I think it just shell-shocked a couple of teams, plus the fact that we had Elise, who was really helping Mateta score goals, and obviously he was scoring as well. We had a lot of our players back from injury, so we had a much stronger squad when Oliver Glasner took over last season. So I think those things probably aided us a huge amount. But the thing is, if you're going to have this type of high press, high energy game, you're going to need to have, as the comment on my video said, you're going to have a bigger squad, because you need to rotate your players. Otherwise they're going to get tired, they're going to get run down, and they're going to pick up injuries. And I think that's probably what's happening to us now. We had a couple of injuries picked up, and that means that we're having to play more players more often, and now we're picking up more injuries as we're going along. And I think that it's got to the point now where you have to think about what Crystal Palace is. I mean, if you're going to be the type of club that wants to play this type of football, then you probably have to have a bigger squad, not necessarily a smaller squad, because you need to be able to rotate. But to do that, you have to have good players in the background that can come in like for like. There's no point having lots of players on the bench who perhaps aren't up to the same standards as the ones you've got in your first 11, because then you're not going to be doing anything effective. And we all know that our budget isn't the biggest, so the chances of us getting a big squad with high intensity players and good players is probably a bit unrealistic. Although I do think we're going to have to dip into the transfer market in January, because I think we're just in that position at the moment. But I think they're probably going to be loan jobs. I don't think we're going to buy anyone. I think they're probably going to be loanees. But I've said this before. Every time we've tried to play a more progressive style of football, it just hasn't worked at Crystal Palace, and I can't quite put my finger on why it is. The training behind the scenes seems to be the same as the manager wants it to be, but we just can't seem to act a more progressive football. We're much better as a more traditional style of play. Yes, okay, breaking on the counter attack if you've got a lot of pace in your team is fine, but we don't necessarily have a huge amount of pace in our team. And I think that, together with the fact that a couple of our signings haven't done as well as they would have wanted us to do. I mean, Lacroix has been really good, I think, but like Eddie Nketiah hasn't set the world on fire. Kamada hasn't done it either. Sarr is okay. He's doing all right, but he is not scoring goals. So I think that, you know, we've got the situation where I think we've got a team that isn't firing on all cylinders, and we've got a team that's depleted, so we can't keep up this high press game because players are getting tired. I mean, you could see it in the game against Fulham. We were just so lackluster, and we didn't run hardly at all. And I think a lot of it is just sheer exhaustion or just tiredness. You know, they can't recover quick enough for the next game. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section on this. Do you think that that, you know, as a club, we can do this type of football? Can we do a high press, high intensity game week in, week out, every game? Or is this something that you think you have to have a bigger squad for, and therefore, you know, we should perhaps go for something that's a little bit simpler, still effective, and, you know, still a way of playing that's going to get us results, but perhaps something that's a little bit more simplified and not quite so high intensity? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section as always.